Let's do problem number 67 on page 114. Here it is. Okay, it says a stone falls freely from rest for 8 seconds. A, calculate the stone's velocity from 8 seconds, and B, what is the stone's displacement during this time? Okay, so let's set this up with given, find, and solve. Given. Here's like a, I don't know, here's a stone, and here's the ground way down here somewhere. Now it says it's falling from rest, so that means it starts off with 0 velocity, and then at some point, hopefully above the ground, it's going down, and this is at t equals 8 seconds. And what are we trying to find? Well, we want to know for part A, calculate the stone's velocity. And B, we want to know how far it fell. So we want to know what its displacement was. Well, it says directly there, what is the stone's displacement? So delta. Now, if we're doing up and down stuff, use delta y instead of delta x, because later on we're going to get to projectile motion where an object has a displacement in the x direction and in the y direction. So we want to get in the habit of calling the vertical direction y. I didn't mark it wrong if you called it delta x, but if your answer was correct and work was correct. So let's solve this. Well, look what I'm given. I'm given velocity, initial velocity, time. I'm trying to find velocity. And what do I know that I didn't write down here? I know the acceleration is negative 9.8 meters per second squared. It didn't say that in the problem, but you can assume it. If you're on the Earth and something is in free fall, you can assume the acceleration is 9.8 meters per second every second in a downward direction. That's what that negative means. So, what has initial velocity, final velocity, acceleration, and time? That's the first kinematic equation. Okay, so have that list of kinematic equations handy when you're doing kinematics problems. So this is 0 plus negative 9.8 meters per second squared times 8 seconds. Notice the seconds will cancel the seconds. So V equals, what is that, negative 78? Can you punch that into your calculator? So the negative means that the object is falling down. That makes sense. The velocity is in a downward direction. And 78, and then you have to put your units. I was looking at your problem. Some of you are not putting units with your answer. That's half a point off right away. So units are very important. And then let's do part B. Now we want to know displacement. Now I could use an equation with final velocity in it, like the second kinematic equation. But I don't want to carry my error forward, so I'm going to use an equation that doesn't have the final velocity in it, and that would be the, if you look on your list, the third kinematic equation doesn't have final velocity in it, but it does have delta y, initial velocity, acceleration, and time. Okay. Now this is 0, folks. If the initial velocity is 0, this whole term goes away. Somebody put 8 seconds right there. They put initial velocity 0, but they put 8 seconds, and they added that to their answer here. No, no, no. This is a term. This is like if you have 0 times anything is 0. So this whole term, because the initial velocity is 0, this whole term is 0. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so now we can just plug in our values. 1/2 negative 9.8 meters per second squared, and then 8 seconds squared. And when you do that, oh, gesundheit, you get negative, let's see, 313. or something that rounds off to that, meters. Now you need to have the negative. It's asking directly for the displacement, right? And the object fell down, and we say down is negative. So you need that negative there to say, hey, it didn't go up. If you just put 313 meters, that tells me that, oh, the rock just, you released it, and boom, there it goes. Okay, some kind of anti-gravity going on. So make sure that you keep, I gave you the vast majority. I think I took like half a point off, or 5 or 5.5, depending on what work you showed. But that is it. Okay. Any questions? Yes. If the velocity is negative, what does that mean? Well, if I tell you something in the y direction has a velocity of negative 78 meters per second, that negative means down. We are now. You could make up negative and down positive, but in this class, we're all going to do it the same way. I'm declaring down to be negative and up to be positive. And that's more because that is more intuitive for most people, so. Okay, that is all.